The next theme is girdle of inferior extremities. This girdle called pelvis. You can see here it is, pelvis. It consists of 3 bones. Impaired bone, which called sacrum, part of the vertebral column, and 2 paired hip bones. These hip bones, left and right, they connect with sacrum and forms pelvis. So pelvis is divided into pelvis major or large pelvis, here it is, and pelvis minor or lesser pelvis, here it is. So where is the border between these 2 parts of pelvis? This border called linea terminalis. Linea terminalis. Linea terminalis. Linea terminalis divides lesser pelvis and pelvis major. Each hip bone also could be divided into 3. Into ileum, os ileum, os ileum. Iliac bone, here it is, iliac bone, os ilium. Then, on what bone do we sit? I demonstrate like this pelvis is sitting on the surface of table. So this bone is contacting with the surface. So number 2 is os ischi. Os ischi. Os ischi. This one, in which we are sitting. And you know that from the front side of the pelvis we can find so named mons pubis, where is inside located os pubis, pubic bone, 3 os pubis. These 3 bones connects with each other in this place, which serves for joints with femur, the main bone of lower extremity. And these connections is quite good seen in children in radiograph. So if we make a radiogram of pelvis, of hip bone, we can find here like Latin letter Y, the place of connection of these three bones. In adult, sure, it disappears, but nevertheless, in children, it's good seeing. We need also to distinguish this very interesting, this place named Acetabulum. 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 So acetabulum belongs to all three bones, to the os ilium, to the os ischii, and to the os pubis. And for two last bones, pubis, belongs also this large opening, foramen obturatorium, foramen obturatorium. Foramen obturatorium. So we can demonstrate several structures which belongs to hip bone as a whole. They are acetabulum, the articulating surface for the hip joint, and foramen obturatorium, the opening which is closed by a special membrane, membrana obturatoria. And let us find several very important structures which we ought to know. First of all, this is so-named, it's ilium, so fossa iliaca, fossa iliaca. Fossa iliaca. In this place, our internal organs, exactly intestine, is located. So, fossa iliaca. Again, fossa iliaca. Here it is. From internal surface. Then we ought to know these two eminences. From left and right side, they called spina iliaca anterior superior. Spina iliaca anterior superior. This part, each of you can easily palpate on yourselves. And if person is not overweighted, we can see these structures without any palpating. And close to it, but more inferiorly, we can find spina iliaca anterior inferior, this one. But this structure could not be palpated. For me, it isn't easy to write down on this table, so on this board. That's why I make this abbreviation, which means first three words in this term are the same. Spina iliaca anterior, inferior. Again, spina iliaca anterior superior is quite good seen in person without overweight, and spina iliaca anterior inferior is located close to it but couldn't be palpated. Then this structure is very important. It's called Eminence iliopubica. Why this term? Os ilius, os pubis, and it is between them. It is roof for acetabulum. So this is Eminence iliopubica. Eminence iliopubica. Again, here it is, this structure. Then, very important structure, it also could be palpated, surnamed tuberculum pubicum. Tuberculum pubicum. Tuberculum pubicum. Here it is. Tuberculum pubicum. Then let us turn our specimen and remember what kind of muscles we can find here. There is muscle which is good for stimulating of education, so named musculus gluteus, and this surface has several gluteal lines. This is gluteal lines, linea glutea. Linea glutea or gluteal lines. And we already said that we are sitting on these structures. It is surnamed tuber ischiadicum. Ischiac tuber, tuberositas. lumbar ischiadicum. So, structure on which we are sitting. And there is spina ischiadica. This is spina iliaca, and this is spina ischiadica. Spina ischiadica. And close to it, there are two adjacent incisura ischiadica majus and incisura ischiadica minus. Incisura ischiadica majus, incisura ischiadica minus. Incisure ischiadica ischiadice majus et minus. Incisura ischiadica majus and minus. Incisura ischiadica majus and minus. So, and the last question with this theme, the dimensions of pelvis. Dimension of pelvis. I shall clean the board and we shall prolongate just now without any pause. Dimension of pelvis. You know, this question is interesting only in obstetrical sense. So we can make a measurement of this dimension in male also, but it doesn't any sense. So when we speak about dimensions of pelvis, it is obstetrical dimensions which is necessary to prognose the possibilities of normal delivery for pregnant women. So, you know, the fetus has a distinct dimensions of the corp and especially of the head before the term delivery. And that's why we need to understand, we prognose, is it will be delivery for this pregnant woman safe or unsafe. That's why we learn with you several dimensions, exactly 3 for large pelvis and 3 for lesser pelvis. But in obstetrician you shall learn more dimensions. First of them is like this: distantia spinarum. What I do now? I connects spina iliaca anterior superior from left and right side. You know, obstetricians use a special instrument which circulum, so named obstetrical circulum, which have two branches, and they put one branch here and another branch here, and can make the measurement. And distantia spinarum, first, distantia spinarum usually in norm is 25-27 centimeters. (25-27 centimeters) in norm. Then there is distantia cristarum. This is crista iliaca, and the most large point of crista iliaca, they form distantia cristarum, which could be in norm 28-29 centimeters. And third dimension is distantia trochanterica. Trochanterica. Trochantermeier is this structure on the femoral bone. This structure. And if we connect femur with pelvis, so we can understand that from left and right side dimensions of these points will give us distantia trochanterica, which should be 32 centimeters. So we have here three dimensions of large pelvis, of pelvis Meyer. And then we shall write down the dimensions of lesser pelvis, pelvis minor. And one of them is the dimension in mid-sagittal plane, which connects the promontorium with the upper outer point of pubis. Promontorium with upper anterior point of pubis. This distance is called as conjugate. Conjugata anatomica. Anatomica. Anatomical conjugate. Anatomical conjugate. Conjugata anatomica. Anatomical conjugate usually have 11 centimeters or 11.5. 11.5. Conjugata anatomica. And second is in the same place, but not for anterior upper, but posterior, internal upper point of pubis. Coniugata vera. Coniugata vera. Vera means true conjugate. Coniugata vera. Sometimes they use term coniugata gynecologica. Gynecologica. Why this term? Vera, true conjugate. Because the fetus head should pass through this most narrow part of the pelvis through the process of delivery. So this dimension will be less than norm, will be not good prognosis for the delivery. 10.5 centimeters. So we can understand that difference between these two conjugates is the thickness of the pubis, thickness of the symphysis pubica. So it is 1 centimeter. It's interesting that these two dimensions impossible to measure really. So if you want to put here circulum, one branch of circulum, you need to cut the anterior wall of the belly. It isn't good for such situation. Do you agree? And these two conjugates, they are a result of accounting. There is a special formulas which helps us to account these dimensions. And third conjugate, which called coniugata diagonalis, diagonalis, it could be really measured during gynecological bimanual exam. So it should be 13 centimeters. 13 centimeters. It's interestingly this way, from inferior point of mons pubis of symphysis pubica to promontorium, this way, this way. This way. Surely there is a question. All women are different in size, in length of the body, in the constitution, and you can see that difference between these dimensions are not large. 25, 27, 28 to 89, 30, 32, and conjugates without any differences. How to explain? We can say that it isn't middle measurement. they are minimum measurements, minimum dimensions of the pelvis, and if woman has the dimensions lesser than this, so the delivery will be not safe for her. So in such situation, when obstetricians find that all the dimensions are lesser than this, they recommend to women use delivery through cesarean section with way of cutting of the anterior abdominal wall and anterior wall of the uterus for remove the fetus. So this material is quite important for our control lesson, so be ready to know and demonstrate all these details. Thank you. You are free.